Hi, everyone. It's Monica. Looking forward to today's episode. I'm very excited to do a deep dive on the Markham Grand Prix. But before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick little shout out before we get into it. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been following our podcast journey and listening to us and engaging with us on social. It's really wonderful to get to talk to some amazing people all around the world. So, thank you for listening to this podcast. And thank you so much for taking the time to follow us and engage with us on our podcast episodes as well as on social. But if you're not following us, any type of follow, subscription, like, 5-star review will definitely help us keep moving this podcast forward and finding more folks to join our wonderful, amazing little community that we built. And so if you have not done so yet, please like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcasting platforms, which are Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And of course, follow us on social, engage with us, DM us random hot takes or what you want us to talk about next on the podcast. We only have a few more races to talk about soon. And that means, well, we have a long off season to get to talk about all of the questions, comments, crazy hot takes that you have had throughout the season or in IndyCar in general. So once again, thank you so much for everyone who has been supporting and listening to this podcast. And please like, subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star review. Any type of engagement definitely helps get our name out there. All right. So before we get into Markham, I first wanted to share some really exciting news that we have made the decision to go back to Milwaukee to attend the Snap-on IndyCar weekend, which we are so excited on. We will be there the whole weekend. So I'm looking forward to the fact that it is an amazing doubleheader. And we also have Indy next. And I believe USF Pro 2000 will also be racing there. So it's going to be an action-packed weekend. We will be boots on the ground. But if you are interested in going to the race, this is definitely one of those races that you definitely need to check out. Not only is it an amazing short oval, it has given us some incredible racing. We have been going to Milwaukee since it got back on the IndyCar calendar, where we got to experience paddle winning and, of course, seeing Connor Daly on the podium with JHR, like just literally guzzling champagne because he was so excited. All the way to last year, being able to experience Christian Rasmussen's first win in IndyCar. It was such a great race. And we had the pleasure of being guests of Tag Heuer last year and got to see some behind the scenes paddock action. And honestly, they do it well. Not only do you get the amazing racing experience and the fan zone, but some of the state fair booths are actually still open after the state fair concludes. So you'll have the opportunity to get your puff pastries, your cheese curds, your amazing local, beers and drinks, and also get to check out all of the amazing merch stores. I know IndyCar has a huge store on premise, and it just gives this amazing Midwestern summer vibe that really chef's kiss. So tickets are still available if you would like to join us at the Snap-on IndyCar weekend at the Milwaukee Mile. The race schedule for the weekend is going to be Friday, August 28th, where we're going to have practice for Indy Next and IndyCar. And then Saturday is jam-packed. You're going to have qualifying for not only IndyCar, but Indy Next. You're going to have the USF Pro 2000 race, and also you're going to have the Snap-on 250, which starts at 1:30 Central. But don't worry, they race on Sunday again. Woot woot. So you'll get the Indy Next race, as well as the second Milwaukee Mile 250. And then it really just gives you the opportunity to get to see some incredible racing before the end of the season. So please, if you haven't done so, get your tickets. It's really fun, guys. It's such a blast. And you'll probably see me sitting in the grandstands, eating a puff pastry, drinking a nice, cold beer. And let's just hope that the weather is as amazing as it's been over the last couple of weekends. So we're definitely looking forward to it. And we hope that you'll join us in attending. So really, God, I can't believe that we are, oh my gosh, those are going to be the second, no, it's going to, after that, it's Laguna Seca and it's over, guys. So this is your last chance in the Midwest to get your IndyCar fix. So hopefully we'll see you there. And yeah, I think it's time to get started to talk about the chaotic Markham Grand Prix. So let's do it. Let's get started. So I have been tracking this, and I don't know if this is going to end up being anything, but I find it very, very interesting. So I saw the other day, I was lightly perusing LinkedIn, and I saw that there was an article posted about Mark Walter selling his ownership of the Los Angeles Lakers for, I believe it was $15 billion. And I was like, interesting, because my guy, didn't you just buy them for $10 billion less than a year ago? So I didn't even connect the dots, but then I started reading the article and I saw a company name that really piqued my fancy, and it was TWG Global. And I went, wait a minute. I know that name. I see it on IndyCars. I see it on NASCARs. I see it in F1 with the Cadillac team and everything in between, right? And I go, oh shit. Clicked on the article immediately, guys. And it looks like Mark Walter, who is, I believe, the founder and CEO of TWG, is currently under investigation under the SEC here in the United States for fraud. And I don't know what's going to happen here. It looks like with his sale of the Lakers, he is trying to raise some equity and potentially divest some of the, I'm assuming, fraudulent charges that he has against him, which is probably going to be close to the $16 to $20 billion if he gets, if he's guilty, right? In the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty. So everything that we're talking about today and what I've read is, of course, speculation. It's, of course, my opinion. None of this has been stated as fact. I just find it very interesting that the co-chair, of TWG Motorsports is Walter and, of course, Thomas Tull, and it owns Andretti Global and Cadillac F1, among other racing entities. And the investigation is under federal prosecution with the SEC, who are probing at about $16 to $20 billion in private credit loans from insurers linked to Walter and TWG Global, with concerns over undisclosed related party transactions. So basically, you did some bad things. You did some no-nos. You did some things behind the scenes that the SEC didn't like. So this is where the liquidity comes into. If Mark Walters is convicted of fraud, the funding would worsen cash flows, right? It would cause some issues, especially for TWG Motorsports. So you look at teams like that are extremely capital intensive, F1, and F1 operation ain't cheap. And of course, the IndyCar series. And so you can see that Mark is currently expediting assets of sales or raising equity, just possibly if in case things hit the fan. So if we think about this, right, this is going to be an extremely interesting thing to just keep a pulse on. Nothing has happened. It has all been speculation at this point. But Would we and are we going to maybe see some sponsors start to exit or demand renegotiations or threaten revenue, especially for the F1 team because it's so new and so capital intensive? But also, negative media coverage could lead, GM and potentially Honda to distance themselves from TWG, right? So you have, GM and technically Ferrari engines in the F1 team on Cadillac side. And then you have Honda engines with the Andretti Global side, right? So does that mean that there's a possibly where, too much negative media coverage could screw over Andretti Global? You also think about operational challenges, right? With budget cuts, it could hinder Cadillac's performance in F1, which, as we know, F1 is such a results-driven type of equity line, while IndyCar programs also will suffer due to reduced resources and leadership instability, right? You're going to have to make up money in some places. So I haven't seen some of my diehard, journalists start to pick this up. I'm waiting for Marshall Pruitt to say something if there is anything to say, but there might be some long-term outcomes that could lead to, drastic restructuring or the sale of TWG Motorsports, right? Where maybe another team would look at partnering with Andretti, right? Or would Andretti, sell one of their 3 charters to a team like maybe even DRR or another team that wants to come into IndyCar just to make up some of the potential loss in revenue when it comes to the outcome of what's going to happen here. So as of August of 2026, the investigation continues with no fraud determinations. Like I mentioned, this is all speculation. This is all, would something happen if something happens? The sale of the Lakers definitely raised some eyebrows in the community, but the situation remains precarious, right? There is potential threatening funding and competitiveness across the TMG racing teams, right? You start having to take a look at, who is on the chopping block first if and when we need to find money, right? It looks like the Lakers are going to take a good chunk of that liquid cash that, maybe Mark was looking into, but that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, right? So, I'm just keeping an eye on it because I just find it extremely interesting that no one else is really talking about it in the racing world, just because there is such a fine line. Like it's basically the same as like Roger Penske and like Penske, the moving company and everything else, and then Penske Entertainment and then Penske Racing, right? They're all 3 different entities, but they all run and are all funded from the same pocketbook, even though they're all differently treated companies, right? So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I hope nothing happens of it, but Andretti has had a bumpy couple of years, especially with things happening around, TWG taking over and having Andretti Global be kind of really under TWG. And, it's one of those like, we're just keeping an eye on it. Right. So we'll see what happens. Dan Tauras has not said anything, but they have teams spanning across F1, IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA, and Australian supercars. So we're going to see how that influences Cadillac Formula One team, Andretti Global, Spire Motorsports, Wayne Taylor Racing, and the Waukesha Andretti United team as well. More to come. Okay, I feel like I've talked about it just enough. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Markham. I needed at least a good couple of hours just to sit there and be like, what the fuck did I just watch? And whether or not it was good or bad. Let's start off with the beginning of the week. Okay. Everyone was super excited about this new street circuit. We saw what Arlington could produce when it came to excitement and racing and putting everyone on an equal footing when it comes to new tracks, right? Well, Friday came around. Well, let's start with Thursday. Thursday came around and the teams got there and womp, womp, womp. Track's not ready, guys. Can't do a track walk. Can't figure it out, right? Well, Marshall Pruitt said it best. It's widely recognized as a top principle at Penske Entertainment, the IndyCar series, and all associated businesses under its leadership. What's the number one rule? Do not, in any way, shape, or form, in any way, embarrass the captain, Mr. Roger Penske. Well, unfortunately, that fundamental rule was broken starting on Thursday because one of IndyCar's long-standing event suppliers, this wasn't a new promoter. Let's start there. Green Savory Racing Promotion, or GSRP, they also do St. Pete, Mid-Ohio, and Portland. So this wasn't like a first-time, local Canadian promotional team. No, this is a promotional program and company that has done St. Pete, which, as we all know, St. Pete is done extremely well, Mid-Ohio and Portland. Well, they failed with the Markham Grand Prix because they left all the teams, the drivers, the manufacturers, and of course, Penske Entertainment, and thousands of fans waiting at the track for an entire day before postponing the event start to Saturday. Okay? So imagine you are super excited. You are like, damn, I'm going to get to go and do the autograph session and see practice. And, if you have kids, it's also practice on Fridays is way chiller than any other day of the weekend. So there's less people. You have more opportunity of meeting the drivers out in the wild. You have all of that fun stuff, right? Nope. Sit down, wait. Something might happen. Nope, just kidding. Saturday is going to be a 12-hour day. Thanks, teams. Enjoy your track walk Friday night. So we have to think about this, right? Markham was announced early in September of 2025. This promotional company had nearly a full year to effectively plan and prepare for this event. And I'm sorry, but the fact that it wasn't ready on Friday morning, that's extremely disappointing. And not only was IndyCar laughed at, it makes IndyCar look bad. It makes IndyCar look horrible, right? And here's what wasn't finished. So it wasn't like there was one thing that needed to get done. This is exactly what was not done when it came to Friday. Ready? Incomplete bridge construction. So the pedways across the track for fans to walk across. Not done. Unfinished safety barriers. What? You didn't have the safety barriers? Also, while I know they use old tires and tires to create, some of those tires looked like they were 50 races in and kind of in shitty quality. Incomplete cabling. An inadequate number of tire bales to secure potential impact zones around turn 12, around all the turns, for the 2.2 mile street course. Staffing shortages that hindered completion of necessary work. So let me get with the staffing shortages. You know that you're short-staffed way before this race was supposed to even start. So if you saw that you had staffing shortages, why didn't you do anything about it? One. Also, some of these safety things are scary. The fact that they weren't even ready. And we don't even know how they fell short. We don't understand how they fell short and also how they fell short in such a significant way. The Toronto race, when it was downtown Toronto versus in Markham, it was always a great race. It was always a great turnout. Fans want to go to these IndyCar races. But being not even there, I felt the frustration of the fans that they were not able to get what they paid for. And also for the fans that wanted to watch it on television, they didn't get that either. And, you had to basically get it all on Saturday, which, yay, you got a full day of racing on Saturday, but it just was shitty. It was just shitty and embarrassing. And we have the DC race next week. If they're not ready there, it's going to be 2 back-to-back weeks where they didn't have their shit together. It just doesn't look good. It's a bad look. And I really hope that hopefully next year they have their shit together and they don't do this anymore. Because at the end of the day, this is really, really not great. Not great. So that was the start of the weekend. right? There was no silly season updates or crazy things going on. It was literally teams being like, we're not getting on track till Saturday. Let's be honest. Let's go play some cards in the team trailer, right? And I also felt bad because you also had support races, and those support races, like, they couldn't do anything either. So you had these, teams just sitting around and waiting and not doing anything, and fans that were mad about it. So, but let's get to Saturday. We had our practices and it was chaotic, right? Practices were bad. Like, there were people that got taken out in the runoffs, people that hit the wall. And then we got to see the hairpin. What the fuck is that hairpin? Like, now that I'm after the race, well, it created chaos and it created some, oh my God, moments. Can we talk about the hairpin? Like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I think it needs to be like a little bit wider so that they don't have to literally turn the steering wheel all the way around to make the turn and stop, basically. Like, I am shocked that the drivers are not more vocal about it. Let's be honest. The ones that did well on it are happy about it, and the ones that got caught up in it absolutely hate it. So I guess it doesn't really matter. But then we get to qualifying. And qualifying was actually kind of interesting. So you get into qualifying group 1, where Christian Rasmussen looked like he was looking great. He, every like 4.5 seconds, Will Power was like, new track record. And it's just like, okay, we get it. New track. And as they go faster, it's a new track record. But it got down to poor Caio Collet. Something like the stress, I think, of not having a seat is getting to him, because he looked very racy during qualifying, but he brought out a red flag and that was it. Day over. And, he also crashed at the end of second practice. So it just sucked. I just saw him like just look so diminished. And I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to put that kind of pressure on somebody, right? So Caio is out, and the more and more he talks, it just seems like his only option is Voigt at this time, and it's eating me alive because he has so much potential. And he's a rookie, and he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to do that kind of thing, kind of things. And so I feel bad for him. But at the time of the red flag, you had Alex Palou, Marcus Ericsson, and Scott McLaughlin were outside of the top 6 spots, and they needed to advance. So literally they had to hustle, and they did. By the end of qualifying group number 1, we had Palou, Ericsson, McLaughlin, Hauger. Yeah, we had a Coyne make it. Woo woo. Graham Rahal and Scott Dixon secured the final spots in their group. We then got to qualifying group 2, and Louis Foster, this was his race. This was his race to lose, and he did. And he really set the pace during the second practice, and he delivered a fantastic lap in qualifying 1 group 2. His teammate Mick Schumacher then produced a really great second lap, and Malukas looked really sporty as well. So when you had everything and you looked at all of it, you're like, oh man, something is wrong with McLaren. You looked at Christian Lundgaard and you looked at Hato and you're like, what is going on? And then Will Power is spinning off in turn 4, which brings out another red. And that kind of timing kind of fucked Kirkwood and Felix Rosenqvist and Rinus VeeKay, who only had enough time for 1 flying lap and couldn't secure a top 6 position. Team Penske's Joseph Newgarden ended the session after hitting the turn 10 wall and losing a wheel. Joseph Newgarden is having another shitty year. And then you have Pato, who was 6th, who then got a penalty for causing a local yellow, which allowed VeeKay to advance to Q2. We then get to the Fast 12, and all cars from Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan made it to the top 12 shootout. Holy shit, all 3. Hauger, and Rahal recorded, great laps. So did Scott Dixon. However, Alex Palou delivered a stunning 1 minute 13.8040, only to crash in turn 10 after clipping the inside wall and hitting the outside wall, which brought out another red flag. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, holy shit. Alex Palou made a mistake in qualifying. We have a chance, guys. We have a chance. So with Alex Palou out, I feel like, holy crap, we have 2.5 minutes remaining. The green flag waved and it allowed for 2 laps. You had VK, Hauger, Rahal, Dixon, Lundgaard, and Ericsson occupied the top 6, but their standings appeared vulnerable, especially with Foster, Malukas, and McLaughlin ready to optimize their cars for another lap. Ericsson briefly took the lead, followed closely by McLaughlin, Hauger, VK, Lundgaard, and Foster. Malukas missing out and Lundgaard narrowly making it through were notable surprises. So now we're in the Fast 6. Palou is out. Anything's on the table. This session featured 6 teams in the top 6, evenly representing both engine manufacturers as well, which I was like, damn, we got 3 and 3. With just 6 minutes, the daylight was fading. And I do wonder, because qualifying was later in the day because of the fuck up that they had on Friday, you were looking at the driver cam kind of, view, and you're like, holy shit. Like, you making it into some of these turns and you're getting blinded by the setting sun. And daylight was fading. And so you had, uninterrupted flying laps, provided no errors during, the initial parts of qualifying. Hauger was actually doing really well, but Marcus Ericsson looked really sporty. But Louis motherfucking Foster shows up and delivers this stunning minute 13.3739, seemingly sealing the pole position. But Lundgaard and McLaughlin looked like they might have challenged it. But Foster said, not on my watch. I want another pole position. He went out and did a 113.2383 and then pitted with a minute remaining. What? So then Lundgaard got second. McLaughlin managed to get third. And then you had, Ericsson, Hauger, and VK, which honestly, great Fast 6. You take Alex Palou out of the equation and somehow all of a sudden all these drivers are just like, I have everything to drive for. You have drivers that are driving for a contract. You have drivers who just got a contract, and you have drivers who have never won an IndyCar race, or even, some of them didn't even have a pole position and they're fucking going for it. So it was actually really entertaining. But now let's get to the race. The beginning of this race, I was actually shocked. I was like, holy moly, they did not crash in lap 1. When I watched them go through the hairpin in lap 1, I was literally holding my breath and I was like, they made it through. There's no carnage. There's no yellow flags in the first 5, 10. Oh, here we go. Then it was just like Detroit Yellow Palooza. It was just like people were running into each other, playing bowling in the fucking hairpin, hitting the wall, clipping oh my gosh, Kyle Kirkwood mentioned the alligator teeth of some of these corners because they're not rounded. It was such a chaotic race. There were 6 cautions. And I think when you think about the race, at one point I was like, oh, come on, Alex Palou is going to win this. Like, I actually genuinely thought that. Like, when we got to the tail end of this race, I was like, holy crap, he's going to do it again. But Marcus Ericsson in the 28 achieved his 5th IndyCar Series victory, beating, I think, a 63 race drought, which, holy moly, moving from 5th to 1st after a late pit stop during the race. The race strategy for this race was actually probably one of the most interesting ones I was watching, because you have to say, hey, there's going to be yellows, but how many yellows? Do we fuel save? Do we go to a 4 stop? Do we stay on a 3 stop? Do we do whatever? And there were, even in the booth, Townsend and Hinch did not agree in the Andretti strategy, but guess what? The Andretti strategy was kind of flying by the seat of their pants, but it worked, right? And you saw how incredible Honda was when it came to gas mileage by the end of the race. Some of these Chevys were really struggling, especially by the looks of McLaughlin and Malukas towards the end of the race. And you had so many drivers on different strategies that some of them just were fuel saving just to be able to not lose out on fuel. And some of them did. Some of them did not finish because of fuel. You had Kyle Collette crashing or hitting the wall in the first laps. You had Newgarden, really have a hard day. Man, that guy was getting fucked around in the hairpin. Anytime he made it up top, something happened, right? The ECR cars, poor Christian and poor Rossi, like they were doing well. And then ECR can't catch a break this year. We'll talk about the penalties in a second, but, Alex Palou did not podium. We had Marcus Ericsson, Roman Grosjean. There was a moment, guys, where I was like, oh my God, holy shit. Roman Grosjean's going to win a race in IndyCar, or period, just win a race. But Marcus Ericsson, it was his race to lose. With Louis crashing out, racing Marcus and clipping the wall, that was a scary hit, let's be honest, but it's not an area where, not a lot of drivers were having issues. It was an area where a lot of drivers were having issues. But because of Ericsson's strategic late pit stop and impressive overtaking, he was driving the boots off that fucking thing. That's what secured him victory. It was lovely to see Grosjean on the podium. It was so cute to hear, like, he called his wife and he kind of cried a little bit because he was happy, but also disappointed that he didn't win. Will Power starting all the way in the back with an engine penalty change and making it on the podium. Like, if he could just have everything be placed perfectly, like all of the coins placed in the same slot, he could win this. He can win in an Andretti. It just seems like this year was just like, this worked, but this didn't work. This is working. This isn't working. And then this worked, but he is still driving the boots off of that thing. And then you had, multiple cautions. We'll talk about let's talk about some of these, penalties, right? So you had Nolan Siegel getting a penalty for ruining a driver's race. I would be really interested to hear what our listeners have to say about Palou not getting a penalty for giving Rossi a puncture. And then inevitably Rossi retired, right? So what do we think? Do we think that Palou should have gotten a drive-through penalty for that? Everyone else was getting one for spinning them out and doing things. I am torn, right? Yes, he ruined Rossi's race. He gave him a puncture and that was pretty bad, right? But it wasn't technically it was literally his front wing slicing the tire open. So the odds of that happening, it's we've seen bigger hits on tires and on even on front wings and nothing happens. This was kind of a spur of the moment, kind of random act of God kind of thing, right? But I could also see the other side of the argument of, well, he did ruin his race and other drivers that spun them out, hit him, whatever it might be, they got the penalty. Why can't Alex Palou get the penalty? So I'm going to be interested to see what the governing board comes out with their updates on penalties and why they gave out what they gave, just to see kind of some more insight around their decision-making process. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. We had this track really gave us a little bit of everything. A bad start, on Friday, fucked up chaos during qualifying and on the race, angry drivers, happy drivers, and everything in between. It really showcased, skill and the importance of strategy in racing. And also it came down to the manufacturers. It was the Honda, GP and Markham. And, we had Honda on the podium. 2, 3. It's a Honda 1, 2, 3. They had incredible gas mileage. So there's nothing you can really do about incredible gas mileage if you have it, right? And we've seen that, right? And poor Dixon, the one who knows how to fuel save the most, literally was just playing bumper cars the entire fucking day. And I think that Dixon's, winning a race every season is going to end this year with his last year at Ganassi too, which I was like, ooh, that's kind of poetic, right? So that was Markham, guys. I don't know. If I had to rate it the weekend, I would rate it a 7.2, where it's not an 8. If I had to say 10 was the Indy 500 this year, I would say it's probably the second best race I've seen this whole entire season outside of the 500. But it's not perfection, right? I think it could have had perfection fix the hairpin. I think they need to really look at the track layout for next year and figure out what they're doing there because they need to fix that. That is all. So yeah, I'm excited for Marcus. I'm excited for Andretti. They really needed this. They needed Marcus with a fresh new contract, definitely needed this. So yeah, I would say it was a good B+ race. I will be interested to see what the viewership numbers were on that too. But yeah, that's basically it. And, like I mentioned last week on the podcast, so we are not going to have an episode after this episode just because we are going to be out celebrating some of our friends getting married, which is really exciting. So we will actually be back after the Snap-on Milwaukee race doubleheader weekend. So definitely stay tuned to how our experiences were at the track. We'll talk about all the chaotic pieces when it comes to the 2 races for IndyCar and of course the Indy Next Championship, which is really heating up. And, there may be some, hot takes when it comes on who's going to win the Indy Next Championship. And also how of an amazing time we had. And maybe I'll do a cream puff pastry. How many did I have all weekend type of count? So stay tuned to socials on our boots on the ground for live Milwaukee coverage. But stay tuned for our 50th episode, guys. I'm so excited. We made it to 50. We will be dissecting both IndyCar races and the Indy Next races at the Milwaukee Mile. I am so excited to be back out there. I am already planning what I'm going to wear. It is just going to be such an incredible time. And if you are interested in going, get the tickets. It helps your mental health. It helps the economy. Buy those tickets. They're incredible. So stay tuned for more on episode 50 on our Milwaukee Mile experience. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Like I mentioned earlier on in this week's episode, please, like, subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star review on all of our podcast platforms, as well as follow us on socials. It really does help. And it really gives us an opportunity to get our name out there to join other motorsport fanatics to talk about IndyCar. We are approaching the end of the season as well. And so if there's any topics or any outside IndyCar conversations that you want us to go over, please shoot us a DM or send us an email at lapitlikei'shot@gmail.com and tell us what you guys want to hear from us. Are there any guests that you would like us to bring onto the podcast? Any questions you want to ask our guests? So definitely do so. We're definitely really sad that we're approaching the last couple of races of the IndyCar season, but we're going out with a bang, being on the boots on the ground in Milwaukee. And of course, then we will celebrate the end of the 2026 IndyCar season at Laguna Seca. So appreciate all of you guys. If you want to follow us and you want to engage with us, it's Lap It Like It's Hot on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And then on socials, we're Lap It Like It's Hot as well. And looking forward to seeing all of your hot takes of Markham and what you guys thought, as well as all of the amazing races that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back soon. All right. See ya.